Have you ever noticed that the most intelligent people you know are often the ones who choose to be alone? Not because they hate people, not because they can't connect, but because they've seen something most spend a lifetime ignoring. They've realized solitude isn't loneliness. It's clarity. It's space. It's freedom. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the sharpest minds in human history, knew this better than almost anyone. He didn't stumble into solitude. He chose it, deliberately, repeatedly. And from that silence came ideas so piercing, they still unsettle people today. But here's what most don't want to admit. Schopenhauer didn't withdraw from the world because he was broken. He withdrew because he was awake. He saw the performance, the endless need for approval, the way people trade their thoughts for belonging, the way society rewards conformity and punishes real thinking. And so he stepped back, not to escape intelligence, but to finally meet it. While others chase connection, the truly intelligent often choose isolation, not as a retreat, but as a rebellion. Because here's the truth most will never face. The moment you depend on others to tell you who you are, you stop thinking for yourself. And once that happens, you're no longer the author of your mind. You're just a passenger. Schopenhauer put it simply, a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. But what he meant was deeper, more dangerous. You can't think freely if you're always trying to fit in. You can't see clearly if you're constantly reflecting someone else's light. This isn't about hating people. It's about protecting your mind. And if you're willing to confront the link between solitude and intelligence, if you're ready to see why being alone might be the bravest thing a thinker can do, then make sure you subscribe. We dive into the ideas that don't comfort. They challenge, they unsettle, they reveal. Because the truth is, the people who choose solitude haven't given up on humanity. They've simply seen through the illusion. Most so-called connection? It's negotiation. It's compromise. It's silent agreements to never say the uncomfortable truth. And in that silence, real thought dies. Real creativity suffocates. Real growth never begins. This isn't a call to become a hermit. It's a call to understand. The highest forms of intelligence often speak in silence, and they only emerge when you have the courage to be completely, utterly alone. First insight. Schopenhauer saw that intelligent people choose solitude because they've recognized what he called the will of the masses. And that will, it's slow intellectual suicide. Most people don't realize how little of their thinking is actually theirs. Their beliefs, borrowed, their opinions, inherited, their emotions, contagious, shaped by the crowd, filtered by fear, policed by social expectation. But the intelligent mind hits a breaking point, a quiet realization. The moment you're with others, even one other person, your thinking splits. Part of you is searching for truth. The other part is scanning the room, watching reactions, avoiding friction, seeking approval, playing the part. And that split, it's not a choice. It's automatic. Our brains evolved to survive in groups, not to think deeply within them. So when people are around, your mind changes. You become safer, smaller, more predictable, less creative, less honest, less free. Schopenhauer understood. Most people never meet their own intelligence because they never sit in silence long enough to hear it. They move from conversation to screen, to crowd, to noise. Never alone, never still, never truly thinking. But the one who chooses solitude, they've made a decision that their mind is more important than fitting in, that their best ideas don't come from chatter, but from silence, from depth, from uninterrupted thought. This doesn't mean they can't connect, can't collaborate, can't love. It means they protect the space where real thought begins, before the world gets a chance to shape it. It means they understand the difference between choosing to connect from a place of fullness and needing others to feel complete. Watch intelligent people in group conversations. They don't vanish, but they don't fully merge either. There's a quiet distance in their eyes, not disinterest, awareness. Because part of their mind is always above the room, observing, tracking, seeing how group thinking forms like fog, how original ideas get smoothed into consensus, how intelligence bends under the weight of belonging. They've learned the cost of fitting in, and they've decided it's too high. Second insight, they've mastered what Schopenhauer called the art of being alone without being lonely, a skill that demands inner development most never attempt. There's a world of difference between someone who's alone because they can't connect and someone who's alone because they choose to, because their inner world is so rich, so alive, that solitude isn't emptiness. It's abundance. Schopenhauer spent decades building what he called the world as representation, an entire universe inside his mind. Thoughts like stars, ideas like continents, insights that needed no audience to exist. He didn't crave constant company or endless stimulation. Why would he? His own consciousness was more fascinating than any crowd. This terrifies people who've never cultivated their inner life. To them, solitude is a prison, silence, unbearable. Because when they're alone, all they hear is emptiness, boredom, anxiety, the echo of a mind that's never been trained to think deeply. They've never learned to be with themselves because they've never built a self-worth being with. But the intelligent person who chooses solitude, they've made a different discovery, that their own mind, developed, disciplined, alive, is more stimulating than small talk, more thrilling than entertainment, more fulfilling than approval. And this doesn't happen by accident. It takes work. What Schopenhauer called the cultivation of mind, deep reading, relentless questioning, aesthetic discipline, hours lost in philosophy, art, science, not for status, but for understanding. They've turned their inner world into a sanctuary, a laboratory, a kingdom. So when they're alone, they're not isolated. They're not cut off. They're in dialogue with Plato, with Nietzsche, with Newton. They're chasing an idea that won't let go. They're building something that only they can see, and to the outside world this looks strange, even threatening, because their peace in solitude breaks the myth that you need to be seen to be valued, that you need noise to feel alive. Their stillness says, I am enough. My thoughts are company enough. My mind is home. Third insight, Schopenhauer saw that the solitary mind develops something rare, intellectual independence, the ability to think what no one else has thought, not because it's rebellious, but because it's true, because they're not constantly measuring their thoughts against the group, not editing ideas before they're born, not killing curiosity to avoid judgment. Most breakthroughs, in science, in art, in philosophy, don't come from meetings, from panels, from brainstorming sessions. They come from silence, from one mind, alone, willing to follow a thought into the dark, even if it seems absurd, even if no one understands. When you're surrounded by people, your thinking stays within invisible lines, lines drawn by what's acceptable, what's practical, what's normal. Even the smartest friends, the most supportive partners, their presence pulls you toward consensus, toward safety, toward the known. But in true solitude, there are no boundaries. Your mind can wander into forbidden territory, entertain ideas that would die in conversation, pursue curiosity with no payoff in sight, spend months on a thought that can't be explained in a sentence. This is where genius lives, not in collaboration, not in networking, but in the long, quiet hours, when one mind dares to think beyond the echo chamber. Newton didn't discover gravity in a focus group. Einstein didn't unlock relativity at a party. Darwin didn't piece together evolution from trending opinions. And Schopenhauer? His darkest, most brilliant insights, they didn't come from debate. They came from silence, from years of being utterly, uncompromisingly alone. The intelligent person who chooses solitude knows this. Their greatest contribution to the world won't come from meetings, from chatter, from consensus. It will come from silence, from the slow burn of private thought, from ideas forged in the dark, where no one's watching, no one's applauding, and no one even knows you're building something that might change everything. They're not avoiding people. They're protecting the conditions where real thought can grow, because they understand the most valuable ideas aren't the ones everyone agrees on. They're the ones no one has thought yet, the ones that live beyond the edge of common belief. And to reach them, you have to walk alone. This takes courage, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that faces down years of uncertainty. No feedback, no validation, no guarantee that what you're doing matters. You could be onto something revolutionary, or you could be wasting your life, and only time will tell. But the intelligent mind that chooses solitude has made peace with that doubt, because they know originality demands isolation. There is no shortcut. Fourth insight, they've mastered what Schopenhauer called the economics of attention. They understand mental energy is finite, and social interaction, no matter how pleasant, is a tax on the mind. Every conversation, even the easy ones, forces you to juggle layers beneath the surface. Tone, intention, status, emotion, hidden agendas, the unspoken math of who likes whom, who's winning, who's trying to fit in. Most people don't notice this cost. They assume thinking is free, but the solitary mind sees clearly. Every social exchange drains cognitive resources, resources that could be spent on creation, on depth, on truth. So they calculate, and they choose. They decide, I will not spend my mental energy on small talk, on networking, on performances of connection that go nowhere. I have a limited amount of focus each day, and I will spend it on what matters. Thinking deeply, creating meaning, understanding the world. This sounds cold until you realize what they're protecting. Not just time, but capacity, the ability to concentrate, to sustain a thought for hours, to build something complex from nothing but insight and will. These are not luxuries. They are the tools of transformation. And too much social noise? It blunts them. So yes, they may have few relationships, but those few are deep, chosen, respectful of silence, and they've cut away the rest. The casual gatherings, the forced events, the endless obligations that most people call normal life. Schopenhauer lived this way, famously. Daily walks, alone, meals, eaten in silence. His entire life structured like a fortress, protecting his mind for the work that only he could do. People called him cold, odd, lonely. But look at what he produced. Philosophy that still cuts to the bone. Because he didn't waste his mind on what didn't matter. The intelligent person who chooses solitude makes the same calculation. Depth over breadth, quality over quantity, thought over noise, legacy over popularity. They trade social currency for intellectual power, and they don't regret it. Fifth insight, Schopenhauer saw that solitude doesn't just protect the mind, it transforms it. It gives rise to what he called philosophical vision, the ability to see what most never notice. Patterns, connections, truths hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. When you step out of the constant rush of social engagement, you stop being in the drama and start seeing it. You notice how much of what people call important is just noise, status games, fear in disguise. You see the same scripts playing out in offices and families and friendships over and over, and you begin to understand most behavior isn't driven by reason. It's driven by need, by insecurity, by the desperate hope of being liked, accepted, seen. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity, and it changes everything. The solitary thinker develops a kind of anthropological gaze, watching humanity like a field researcher, not with hatred, not with contempt, but with quiet understanding. They see the rituals, the masks, the silent bargains people make to belong. And once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them, which means you can't play them the same way. You can't pretend small talk is meaningful. You can't act like social events are anything but performance. You can't lose yourself in the crowd because you've seen the machinery behind it. And that clarity, it's liberating, but it's also isolating because the more you see, the harder it becomes to pretend. Schopenhauer wrote about what he called the suffering of existence, not just pain, but the deeper ache, the way most human lives are driven not by choice, but by invisible forces, desire, fear, social pressure, the unconscious need to fit in, to be seen, to be approved. People who choose solitude often do so because they've seen through it. All of it. They've gained enough distance to recognize most of what we call life is performance. Most of what we call meaning is distraction, and pretending otherwise. It exhausts them, so they step back, not because they hate people, but because they refuse to lie, even silently, about what matters. This doesn't make them better, it makes them different. They've traded comfort for honesty, popularity for truth, the ease of belonging for the weight of seeing clearly. And yes, they still engage with the world, when it's necessary, when it's meaningful, but they do so as observers, as thinkers, as contributors, not participants. They enter society not because they need it, but because they choose to. And that changes everything. Because now they're not reacting, they're responding from a place of depth, from a place of clarity, from a self that hasn't been worn down by constant compromise. And here we arrive at Schopenhauer's deepest insight. The intelligent person who chooses solitude isn't rejecting humanity. They're preparing for it. They've realized the highest human capacities, creativity, wisdom, original thought, deep understanding, don't grow in crowds. They grow in silence, in stillness, in the long, unbroken hours when no one is watching. Solitude isn't escape. It's training. It's the forge where rare ideas are shaped, where truth is pursued without audience, where the mind learns to walk alone so it can return with something worth saying. Schopenhauer believed the people who choose solitude often have the most to give, precisely because they've taken the time to develop what only solitude can produce. Insights that don't echo the world, but challenge it. They're not running from connection, they're preparing a gift for it, because the intelligent person knows this. Their greatest contribution to others won't come from being always available, from agreeing, from fitting in. It will come from the depth they've cultivated in silence, from the years of thinking no one saw, from the courage to be wrong, to be misunderstood, to be alone with a truth before the world is ready for it. And that's why Schopenhauer found such people not just intelligent, but terrifying, because they threaten the illusion, the quiet agreement we all make, that belonging is more important than truth, that comfort is better than clarity, that we'd rather be wrong together than right alone. But the solitary mind has broken that contract. They've discovered something dangerous. A mind, fully developed in solitude, can see further, think deeper, create more than any group ever could. And your discomfort around them, that quiet unease when you see someone completely at peace, alone, thinking, needing nothing, that's not just social conditioning. It's recognition. You sense they've accessed something you haven't. They've built a relationship with their own consciousness so strong, so rich, that they no longer depend on the systems the rest of us rely on for identity, for purpose, for worth. They don't need to be seen to feel real. And that independence, it shakes the foundation. So no, the person who chooses solitude is not antisocial, not broken, not afraid. They've simply discovered a truth most avoid. The highest forms of intelligence require one thing above all: the courage to be completely, unapologetically alone with your mind. And they've decided that courage is worth every cost, even if it makes them seem strange, even if it makes them misunderstood, even if it means walking years in silence before the world hears them. That's what makes them terrifyingly intelligent. Not just their ideas, but their willingness to go where those ideas lead, even when it takes them far from approval, far from noise, far from the crowd. So the next time you meet someone who seems genuinely content in solitude, who doesn't crave constant stimulation, who finds endless fascination within, remember Schopenhauer's warning. You may be standing beside someone who has accessed a form of intelligence that only silence can birth, thoughts that only solitude can grow, wisdom that only independence can reveal. They're not running from intelligence. They're running toward it. And what they're carrying back from that silence might be exactly what the world needs.